Happy 113-degree heat in hell Friday here at the top of the fabulous New Orleans Square Plaza inside the historically famous commercial center in Purgatory, Las Vegas. Man, it's hot. And not only that, guess what? We get to break a record either Sunday or Monday. The record heat, believe it or not, in Las Vegas is 117 degrees. I thought it would be much higher, but that's it. We reached it, but we haven't broken it since like the 50s. Great. So when I was overseas in the other desert on the government paid, all expenses paid trip to the Middle East, I was there when they broke the heat record over there too. These are not records I need to break. Give me something else. But mortal heat is not one of those things I want to be in a Guinness Book of Record. Welcome to the Sci-Fi Center weekly Star Trek show, Star Trek Weekly. This week we will be discussing Star Trek Strange New Worlds, episode 5 of season 2. I rewatched the episode. I actually liked it better the second time. Before we get to our wingman, if you are interested in supporting our stream on any level, I have pinned a link to the top of the Sci-Fi Center's chat room if you're in there right now, and I've entered it into the Point Extra Lounge, streamlabs.com / the Sci-Fi Center. The link is right there. Anything helps. I have people that are working on this with us too, so I'd like to get them some cheddar if I get a chance to. Plus, it'll help make the channel better because we're going to be doing some new things and purchasing some new programs and stuff. You're going to see me trip over my own feet over the next couple of days as I mess around with Streamlabs, trying to make things better and add all the bells and whistles. So there may be times where I'm talking to you and I'm not even on the air and I won't realize it. So just go ahead and play along with me. All right, let me go ahead and bring in Heckle and Jekyll. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey, boy, Dave, how's it going?
Oi. Hello.
Hey, man, you got to put something in your background. You got to,
Yeah.
so barren behind.
Well,
know
that's
what's funny
honestly one of the reasons why I don't show my face much is because my background is still. I've got to set up my green screens whenever I do shows, so I actually have something behind me.
We'll get you the green screen so you can just put up crazy
Well,
stuff,
I have my green screen down at the moment because I don't know how to set it up properly on StreamYard.
That I actually do know how to do. Of all the stuff I don't know how to do, I actually do know how to do.
Well, you're gonna have to help me with that, William, because I've got a green screen rack back there on my couch. I haven't unboxed yet, and I would like to be able to.
Like I said, I may blow up the screen.
Especially for the Star Trek shows, because I'd like to put like a bridge set behind me or whatever.
Yeah.
I can do it through OBS. I just can't figure out how to do it on here.
Yeah, it's actually pretty easy through StreamYard. Like I said, if I can figure it out, it can't be too complicated. All right, guys. So episode 5, the charade. Like I said, second time around, I actually enjoyed this episode more. While I was watching it, it was a little bit too, a little bit on the intense side for me. I watched it again just to see if there were any Easter eggs and things in there that I missed out on because it just rotated right through. I actually kind of like this episode. I think it's going to be one of the last episodes that we get to before they start getting into Gorn stuff and Romulan stuff and more serious stuff. But I thought for a midway point episode of the season, I thought it was pretty entertaining. What did you think? I'll start with Dave and we'll go to you, Vince.
So I rewatched this. Okay. So initially, the first night, I really liked it. It was funny, but it was funny in all the right ways. Plus any of us that have been married know about having mother-in-laws and father-in-laws and having that first meeting and all that BS. And I actually got the shivers from the way her mother acted towards Spock because I've been there. So yeah. But I rewatched it yesterday.
Yeah.
And I rewatched it. I liked it even more. I think it was a good episode. I do want to point out before I go too much farther, I would like to point out to say rest in peace to Manny Koto, who passed away this week. And condolences to his family, of course. Uh, he did us well with Star Trek back in the day, and I think he should be celebrated. So
He did his best. He was one of the factors of Enterprise that fought the stupidity, and
yeah,
any of the good stuff, in my opinion, that we got from the original plan that was Enterprise was is from him fighting, that battle. So yeah, we lost him too early at 63 years old, I believe. And
yep,
it's man. I mean, it sucks. I mean, you get you know 63 is not I think it was cancer that took him from us, but
yeah.
man, damn. He was, like I said, I will always remember him for being on the right side of what Enterprise was supposed to be, and but he was just up against too much. He was up against the collapsing of a network. He was up against old Trek fan, who at that point had so much leverage, and like I said, anything we got good, we anything good that we got from the mid 2000s of Star Trek was because of him. So rest in peace, Manny Koto. All right, so somber note, but hey, we got to recognize when some of these great ones are going. Um, Good points about this episode was the development, the development of the characters. I think Pike was an ace in this episode. He didn't really have to be ever present, but just being him, he was the glue to a lot of those tense situations, and I really, really enjoy um, Antonin and the way he just basically plays off of the chemistry of whatever's going on. It doesn't matter what's going on. He just fits in where he needs to. He can either fit in with a command presence or he just fits in as that in between guy. And he seems to be able to do it just right. He seems to meet the moment. And I really enjoyed his interaction with both the parents, especially the father, because it seemed like him and the father were on the same wavelength when it came to, is this woman serious? Is she really gonna dog everything we say? So I enjoyed him this episode. I think one of us is echoing. Is that you, Vince? It may be you. Hold on. Let me see. Because I can hear my voice. Testing, testing. Woohoo! Yeah, it's you, Vince. But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. I enjoyed. I wanted to
I
strangle
was
him.
muted, so
Oh, so who is it? Is it you, Thade? Is it me? Testing. Yeah, it was Thade. Okay, but yeah, I wanted to strangle the mother-in-law. I can I'm pretty sure every married man in America can relate. There were times where I thought she was too harsh, but I thought T'Pring came off as a champ when she stood up to her during all that.
One
So,
thing I
but
did want to point out about the mother-in-law, and this was brought up by another person that I heard talking about this episode. Yes, she was being hard on Spock, but she was being especially hard because of Amanda.
yeah,
But
yeah,
but you could actually see that she does care about her daughter, and that's part of what was pushing her to be that way. It, it's
eh,
it's more than just it's more than just like narcissism on her side. It's you can tell she cares for her daughter, but you can also tell that there's a lot of tension because of Amanda.
yeah. And we also have to be reminded of the fact that at this point in the Vulcan human relationship, even though they've been together as far as Starfleet goes, the Federation goes, we're about 100 years into that relationship. It's still not where it will ultimately end up. Like if you look at the relationship between Sarek and Spock in this show and in this era of Trek, and then you look at where they're at the end of Star Trek 4, and remember the quote that Sarek said. I remember being against you joining Starfleet, and he was, and that's what created the rift between them. And he admitted right there that I may have been mistaken. These people are good character. So there was an evolution in the entire relationship, the Vulcan human relationship. It just isn't where it is, and there's certain aspects of it that are outright offensive. and like the whole smell thing. I'm like, wow, you know, he just,
Well, you have to understand the Vulcans, and this was talked about a lot in Enterprise. The Vulcans see us as children. You know, race-wise, we haven't been out in space as long as they have. We haven't been, you know, they've had. I think by this point they've had like half a millennium to be out in space, and we're just 100 years or so into being out there. They've had more time than us, and they're also we're primitive to them. We allow our emotions to rule us. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why they're xenophobic. I'm not justifying them at all, but
there could always be a lot more tact though, and every time they address certain issues, they are evolved enough and articulate enough to do it better, and they never do. I mean, which is part of their character, but I just think it's hilarious that the fact that yes, you're prone to telling the truth and being honest, but at the same time, if you're going to be ambassadors and parts of Starfleet and parts of a federation, they just never seem to be sensitive into the people around them, and they know that they have to coexist with these people. They're part of a federation. They're the anchor parts of a federation, and they just don't give a shit sometimes. And it's hilarious. Like last night when we're watching that episode, I'm like, wow, we're in an alliance with these people. It's like you want to choke them, but at the same time, there is respect, because even at the end of this episode, you saw, Amanda, Spock's mother, she was holding firm. I could not have been her. I would have grabbed something and been like, you know what? What did you just call my son? Or what are you implying that my son is? And that's Vulcan or not, that's still her son. And I like the interaction between her, especially when he was trying to pull the ruse on her, and she could tell right away that something was up. He's like, I'm surprised I didn't fool you. I'm like, a mother knows. That's still her son. And plus, she brought up the fact you're not a practiced liar too. So I loved her in this character.
Well,
Mia, I forgot what's the actress name that plays her.
Mia Kirshner.
Mia Kirshner from Elworth. Yep. That's where I know her from. Well, yeah,
very first thing I ever saw Mia Kirshner on was The Crow City of Angels.
That's right. Oh wow, that movie.
She played Sarah. That movie was horrible, but she played Sarah.
Yeah. That movie was one of those forgettable sequels. Well, that's another stream.
You know what's really funny is we talk about the sequels to The Crow, and I'm just going to say this really quick. I actually liked the third sequel, Salvation, or the second sequel, the one with Eric Mavis.
Salvation. Oh wow! I can tell you the best thing about that one was the song that Hole did. They remade a Fleetwood Mac song, and that was the best thing about that. The whole thing. That's the only thing I can remember about that. But yeah, she was great, and her balance and tolerance, and the fact that they explained when he turns to her and said, I never put myself in your shoes to see how you had to be a human growing up around these Vulcans who looked at you like this, and the memory. I thought the coolest moment of the thing is the memory that she took from him when they mind melded. I thought that was cool. I thought the whole thing was cool.
Where that memory comes from? That's actually from canon source. Well, depends on how much you consider it canon.
The cartoon, right?
It comes from the animated series, an episode called Yesteryear.
Yeah, I remember that. They actually, I saw somebody doing a review in the episode that actually brought that up. So I was, I like I said, character development in this show, I'm not going to put it on the Voyager level yet, because Voyager I had 7 years to judge by, but this is the best character development that they've done, and it's the one thing that Discovery is a great Star Trek show, but I think that too much of the show is told from Burnham's point of view, whereas when Star Trek's at its best, you get the story from the points of view of everyone else. Like even when it comes to Data, you had an episode about him and his cat. And you got to learn more about Data through that episode about Spot. So I was impressed of each episode we get. Like I said, we're still waiting for Erica's episode, for her to for her to evolve past the video game Helms person. But I'm waiting for that. I think that'll happen. I think that's going to happen during the lower decks episode. That'd be an
Uh,
appropriate
s-
episode for her.
Something I want to point out about Ortegas, and this was something I was discussing with somebody else the other day. A lot of people complain about how she snipes off at her superior officers and everything else. She isn't acting any different than any other hotshot pilot. I mean, watch Top Gun for Christ's sake. I mean, all of the things that Maverick did against his superiors and still got away with it. I mean, she's not acting any different than any hotshot pilot.
Even Tom Paris.
Yeah,
We
Tom
want to
Paris
bring
mouthed
up Star
off.
Trek. Yeah.
Wesley mouthed off. Wesley Crusher mouthed off a lot.
Yeah, and we
I
got to
mean, we
realize that even though, especially somebody who's been in the military like me, that we would never be able to talk to even a superior NCO that way. But this is hundreds of years. This is a loose military structure. Yeah, there's rules and stuff, but there's also it's not like we're dealing now. It's not like Garrison or anything else. So I always play around with it. I like her. And there's a line. I mean, some people don't like the familiarity that the senior crew has, and I think that's always been what Star Trek has been. It's always been that relationship and that leeway that
well,
the
there was
captain and the senior officers give to their crew.
there was familiarity amongst the original crew. Kirk, Spock, her, all of them.
Not to this extent, though. It was there, yeah, it was there, but it was like once it was Kirk and Spock, and it went down. It wasn't as personal as it is in Strange New Worlds. Like obviously they knew each other and they were on but it was never the interaction on the original series. There was a familiarity there, but there's a word I'm looking for here. It's a different type of camaraderie and
Well,
back
you
and forth.
also have
That's
to.
here.
You kind of get the idea, and stop me if I'm wrong about this, but you kind of get the idea in the original series that though these people know each other, and the further along they got, especially when you got into the movie era, they got a little bit more familiar with each other. But
Yeah.
they
No, you're
had
not
been,
wrong.
they had in the original series there was familiarity, like you said, to an extent, but also those people were starting to get to know each other for the most part. Characters on I've been reading a lot of Memory Alpha and everything, trying to learn about the backgrounds of some of these characters in Strange New Worlds. They've known each other, some of them, for quite a while. Chaplin and Bega knew each other during the war. Um, Chapel and Ortegas also knew each other from before she was on Enterprise, before Chapel came to the Enterprise, because Ortegas and her talk about this time where they were on shore leave on a different planet, and Chapel was involved with a woman. It's remember Ortega says something about the woman from Argelius and being chased with being shot at with a phaser and all that stuff during an episode last season.
Oh,
And so a lot of it's the episode Spock Amok. It's where
okay.
T'Pring and her, you know,
Oh, they
when
go down to the planet. Yeah.
yeah, they go down the planet and Ortegas is her wingman with that Decker guy or whatever, the dude that she was supposedly dating. Anyway, my point I'm making is these people have known each other since before they were on Enterprise in a lot of cases. So that might breed a little bit
Yes,
more
but you figure
familiarity.
Kirk had been by the time because you see the pilot, and by the time you see the first regular episode, they've been together for a little bit. Chapel's always obviously been there. Kirk has been there for quite a while because he takes over. Supposed to take over pretty soon. But I guess but it's also it's also a different era of storytelling too. So
Yeah,
that's all.
it's a
Hold on for
different
a
time
second.
period.
Let me shoot this down. Listen, Chappie, I destroyed you last time when you tried to justify that Cloverfield wasn't a disappointment, and I did it in like 5 minutes. I did that in 5 minutes, Chappie. You had a chance to defend Cloverfield. You actually had a shot there. You had like a 2% chance of success there. You have no chance of success in defending Howard the Duck anywhere on any earth, any reality. There's no chance. I'm not listen. I might not even talk during. If we ever have that debate, I might not even talk. I might just sit back because it'll collapse on its own absurdity. So I'll think about it, Chappie. But I don't want you to like. I don't want to scar you for life because that one's going to be brutal. All right. So this was a very actionless episode, in my opinion. I mean, and they've gotten really good at. We don't need action for these people to tell good stories, which is rare for Star Trek. I mean, in this succession, yes, all Star Trek has episodes to where there's
It's more
it
cerebral.
doesn't require things going up. Yeah, but these guys can do it 3-4 episodes in a row to where there's very little action. Even the last episode where there's action, the fighting wasn't paramount to the. You could have eliminated that kind of conflict, and the story was still going to be just as strong. That's pretty good. I'm seeing why people are catching on. If you notice, I'm seeing articles now where it's getting up there in the streaming numbers, and I'm hearing it from different sources. But yeah, it still has its detractors, but yeah, they're always going to be there. But yeah, this episode was a powerful episode. I know I was watching Chuck Yards, and I watched that show like a religion. By the way, I'm trying to get those guys on here, but our schedules and plus Commander Koken's his sidekick is in London. It's just really hard. But I watched that show literally like right after I watch every episode. He does it live, and they're sticklers, man. They're sticklers, and they were loving this show. So okay, old Star Trek, even Next Generation was very story heavy. Action was minimal. Yes, but Master Shard, I want to ask you this: was it ever to this extent though? And I'm not knocking Next Generation. That's aside from the first 2 seasons, which were dreadful, the rest of the show wasn't all the time great. But if I remember when I remember episodes of Star Trek, there was always some kind of confrontation to the point where it wasn't necessarily violence, but it wasn't always an even kill like these last 3 episodes have been for A Strange New World. They've always had their cerebral episodes, but when's the last time that action drove the story for Strange New Worlds at all? So action from Spock and Chapel get some. Yeah, okay. Well,
King of the Nerds brought up something that I was going to bring up, and I'm right there with you, William. The second viewing, I loved it even more. I'm just going to say I love this episode. I'm watching it with my girlfriend, and she was laughing a mile a minute. And speaking of King of the Nerds' comment about how did you feel about how Spock handled being fully human, I loved it because it really showed.
I loved it. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It really showed the emotions of Vulcans. How like they're way more intense than humans. Like even eating the bacon, that emotion he got like tenfold. Like where he was just eating all of it.
My favorite one is when he goes after Samuel Kirk.
No.
I will destroy you, Kirk.
Kirk starts cleaning up everything. He starts going like, all right.
Yeah, my girlfriend was like, "Oh my god!" Yeah, she's talking about being OCD, so it's like, yeah.
I will end you, Kirk.
Yeah. But the laughing and the jokes when he was just completely laughing over it, when he was overplaying it, it was so funny because it's all so new to him because he does not have, because he has his emotions, but he's no longer, doing the whole discipline to keep him in check. He didn't have to. But
I wanted to point out, this is just from my own personal experience. I go to a lot of therapy because of things that have happened in my past, and I suppressed a lot of my emotions for a lot of years. And when I started on the medication that they give me for my issues, I had a flood of emotions like Spock in this episode. And it was overwhelming to me. And being human, when you've suppressed your emotions for so long and all of a sudden the medication brings your emotions back to the forefront and they flood you. I actually related with Spock in this episode. I've been there. I've been with that immense emotion. I've been with that, having to try to figure everything out. You know.
Yeah. When he went off on the mom at the end, that was consistent with what all levels of Spock, no matter where you see him. Even when people go after his humanity, every level of Spock that I've ever seen, no matter who plays him, gets defensive of that, and that is a cool thing to see. Someone who is half Vulcan do it, and with his mother standing right there, because even though it's their way, and that's what T'Pral is, he's human. The reality of his human side says, no, you're not going to sit here and talk about my mom that way. You're not going to insult my human heritage that way. You realize that you're talking to a human and a Vulcan. And I remember back in the 2008 or 2009 movie where Sarek said, hey, you're a child of both worlds, embrace both. And that was emblematic of what he did, and I thought that was cool. And he was doing that. He was holding it back when he was human before Chapel gave him the shot. And then when he gets the shot and he gets his full Vulcan behavior back, he's still stuck with it. He still defended his mother. He still defended his humanity. That was my favorite part of the whole thing, was the fact that he just wasn't going to do the whole son-in-law, future son-in-law thing and just appease her. There was a limit, and she reached it, and he let her know. And I thought that was the coolest part of his character development in that
I
show.
I
Or
I
in that
actually
episode.
had to do that. I actually had to do that with a mother-in-law at one point. I had to, because she tried to act like she was going to put me beneath her, and I put her in her place. I was like, "Look, you may not accept everything of me, but this is how this is, you know." And I had to stop her. I had to hold her off.
Yeah, so I was proud of him. Hey, guys, with the Howard the Duck, I'm not taking the bait. I'm not taking the Howard the Duck bait. The answer is no, numbers. No, no,
Duck
no.
bait, duck bait, duck bait.
Not happening. It is
Also,
not happening.
another thing I was reminded of in this episode was the motion picture where he was starting to figure himself out after having the mind meld with V'ger, and his emotions when he realized that V'ger was alone. You know,
Yeah.
Spock has always dealt with the fact that he's of both worlds and of neither, and he's alone. He's one of the few half Vulcans out there. And I know for a fact that there weren't that many. Not at first,
You
but
can see why. Could you holy cow. I
yeah,
mean, imagine a mother that wasn't as strong as Spock's mother had been going through this. Probably be some cat fights going on in there.
yeah,
Like I said, because I don't care what your species is, your mother is going to be very protective of her son.
yeah.
And a son is always going to be protective of his mother. And I love that dynamic that
And
was there.
you can see the parallels in Spock's character in fantasy novels that deal with half elven, uh, crosses between humans and elves. You get a lot of that too. That not being accepted by either race, being kind of looked at as an outsider. It's
Yeah,
it's really an interesting story that goes back, well over 100 years.
because he had no choice to really embrace whatever. Like Cybok had a choice. Cybok
Yeah,
just left that trail immediately. But when it came to Spock pretty much was raised as a Vulcan. On Vulcan, went to the Vulcan Science Academy. He went, was going headed to Culinar. So, but he also had his mother there. His mother was there to remind him, this is this is part of you. And you see at the point where now, when he calmly refers to his humanity in the original series and later on, you can kind of see where he got that from, where he's evolved from. So I thought this episodes and these last couple of episodes have given you a good reference point to the Spocks and the characters that will survive this iteration. Whether it's an alternate universe or not, you can see the lineage of common sense where it's coming from. When you look at Spock, when you look at, not necessarily Pike because we didn't get a lot of them, but when you look at some of the, Uhura, all these characters, like you said before, you see what they have gone through to get to the point that we first see them at. Now, Pike is going to be a different story because, like I said, we just don't have enough on him,
no,
and he's a clean white board, makes this entire thing. Because right now we are technically dealing with an alternate universe. Because if we're going to believe that everything that we know as Star Trek fans has happened and is not interrupted, right? then the moment that Pike knows what's going to happen to him, that is a divergent time.
Yeah,
So
and that's something we dealt with in the time travel episode too. You know, they even and it's being, a lot of people are starting to realize it now with all of the temporal incursions that have happened since the original series. All of the time travel stuff that's happened, all of the backlashes, all of the temporal distortions have led to kind of a nexus point, if nothing else. It's led to this fragmentation of how the original story was supposed to be. And but that's something to be expected about time travel, or especially when you deal with time travel a lot. You have like divergent timelines, you have branching timelines.
yeah,
You
but
know,
here's the theory though. At some point, they all have to come together again because the time police are already there.
yeah.
They're already past that point. So at some point, these things all have to come together again, or the time police don't have a good tether on all realities. Each reality would have a time police, which would invalidate their existence because the whole point would be to make sure that there's not so much divergence that you cause a collapse. So
Okay,
at some point, these universes have to consolidate.
I'm
You know
gonna
what I mean?
I'm gonna explain something as it was explained in an X-Men comic book recently. You know the
Oh
TVA
shit.
from the Loki series, right?
Uh huh.
There's one individual in all of the timelines that TVA fears the most, and it's the mutant Cable. Because of all the different timelines he's been a part of, the one thing about Cable is because of his mental mutation, he remembers every death he's ever faced in every timeline. The TVA
Yeah.
doesn't know how to stop Cable. That's why they fear him. With all of the temporal incursions that happen with the X-Men, it's the same as with Star Trek. And it started with the temporal Cold War and the Romulans, and a lot of people are starting to acknowledge what you were saying about the timeline episode, the time travel episode. That the Romulans going back in time, that this has to go back to that point in Enterprise. Why are the Romulans trying to mess with everything? What's pushing that agenda?
I dude, people who are writing the last season, whatever work you guys are doing on it. No, nobody's doing anything right now because damn,
Everybody's on strike, but yeah.
um, but if it were me, like I've been saying, Enterprise would link up with yesterday's Enterprise. It would link up with Enterprise. It would link up with
Stranger
Strange New
Worlds.
Worlds because all those episodes. I've always said that those episodes link together. The attack on the part where the Enterprise C comes through. We've
Narendra
already
3
seen,
outposts.
yeah,
Yeah.
we've already seen the temporal things that have been happening. So
And
that
all of
connects
them
to that.
involve the Romulans.
Every single one of them involves Romulan and then Worf's father, the traitor and all that,
Kittimer.
all that connected. I mean, a lot of these things would be connected to it, and then we connected back to the original series, because like I said, if I were writing it, the original flat-headed Klingons are the alphas. They are based. It would be basically like having a couple of a small society of supermen ruling the Earth, and they could do it. Not saying that they would be like superhumanly powered, but they would be like literally the most superior Klingons available. They would have access to futuristic Romulan weaponry, everything else, and that's when you see them in that episode in the original they're saying, like I said, I would wipe away that explanation that they gave away in Enterprise because I hated that, and then that would be it. And I would use and when you do some newer Trek, I would save some of those flat-headed evil Klingons for future stories because they can time travel now. Because they would have to once the rest of the rigid-headed Klingons figured out that they're basically hybrid Romulans that are experimenting on, they'll uprise and get rid of them, and they're going to probably have to escape into time somewhere where they'd be safe into the future. So I would link all this together with Discovery, because Discovery is the furthest point right now of Star Trek that we actually have episodes coming from. and I would
Tie
have
it into the
Jeffrey.
Negvar. Tie it into the Negvar now.
Yeah, I would have yeah, and that's why. That's why because like I said, whenever you have this kind of piece, there are proud people of either species. I would even, you know what? I would have it twisted where it wouldn't necessarily be. It would be a Romulan, or it could be a Vulcan, because it would be a Vulcan that'd be like, you know what? All this led to the extinction of the proud Vulcan race. But you could also make a case where all this led to the extinction of the proud Romulan race.
You know
So,
what would be funny? I know they'll probably never do this, but one of the heroes of Vulcan history is Surak, the guy who taught them their logic.
yeah,
Who? What if it's Surak?
that would be hilarious. But
what?
I,
What if it all leads back to Surak? That would be funny.
but yeah, have those Romulans in there, dude. I mean, Balance of Terror, same. I mean, I would link back. We've already had a Balance of Terror episode. The season finale, still the best episode of this show, in my opinion, so far.
The Quality of Mercy.
Quality of Mercy, that's the best episode of Stranger Worlds for me.
I
You
love
link that
how
right
those.
to it.
I love how the titles of those two episodes connects too. You have Balance of Terror, Quality of Mercy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I wanted to point out two other things I loved about this episode. Was that you know how Chapel was trying to get onto that Vulcan Brotherhood or whatever that was, or the archaeology thing. How at the end she was just like, "Hey, I did all this stuff. I don't really need you." And then when Spock was talking to Lon and how about these emotions and whatnot, and then he said something about, "I feel something really weird," and then she looked at him and he goes, "Now I'm embarrassed." I just busted out laughing.
Yeah, it's because he was getting inappropriate thoughts about Leon.
Yep. But how she just basically hung up on that Vulcan guy, I was like, you go, girl. I would have done the same thing.
Also, another Easter egg from the original series. When Mbanga is quizzing her at first for her meeting with the Vulcan Academy people, he mentions the Corby method.
The what? Say that again. I'm sorry.
Mbanga mentions the Corby method. Corby was her fiance that she was looking for in What Little Girls Are Made Of, or What Little Girls Are Made Of.
Oh,
Roger Corby.
Yeah, I totally missed that. I'll have to watch another special show. All right, so let's see. Like I said, I was very impressed with this episode. I had a lot of fun with this episode. I gained new respect for certain characters. Like I said, I mean, I didn't know I could gain a little bit more for Spock because I pretty much you already know what the end product of Spock is. But like I said, seeing him, basically hold his ground, and him and T'Pring do not need to be together. She's hot, but damn, there's just too many problems.
Well, this also sets up a mock time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they're distant. They're starting to become distant.
Yeah.
And this really does set up what later, leads into a mock time and her choosing Ston over, or it's Ston? Yeah, choosing Ston over Spock.
Yeah. I mean, did we see the ship in this episode? Was the ship there?
Barely. They were on the ship, but you really didn't see the outside of the ship.
Did you guys watch the preview for the next episode?
I did. I forgot what went on though.
It wasn't very long.
It seems interesting.
Yeah, because you got a couple more episodes since the Till the Lower Deck one, but we're halfway through the season, man. We only got 5 more episodes left?
Yeah.
5 more, 1 more month. Wow, what are we gonna do? Oh, good lord.
Oh, we got Ahsoka coming up.
We got Ahsoka coming and Lower Decks coming.
Oh, so nothing for me to watch. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
I guess I'll watch Ahsoka with you guys. Actually, it looks pretty intense. I've never been a big fan of Rebels. I tried it, and it just was just too many characters I just didn't care about.
I forced myself to watch it. I love the story. The art style, I'm kind of over that art style, and I like
the characters were great. The characters were great.
Well, I'm only watching for Thrawn. I want to see. I want to see Thrawn. That's it. That's the
Hey,
rest
one
of
thing
those characters.
one thing you got to give Rebels is it's what recanonified
Thrawn.
Thrawn. Because
Yeah,
before
Changed.
they
that,
basically
when
threw
Disney
out
changed
Heir
it,
to the
and
Empire.
no,
Yeah, because from what I can understand, Heir to the Empire is pretty much not relevant as much now. But since so,
Yeah.
well,
it feels like my
Well,
internet
Heir to
is.
the Empire.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Heir to the
your
Empire is
internet's
a
going
thing,
out.
but it's
No, 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 no. I think it's fixed. That's all I was gonna
Oh,
say.
okay, cool. Go ahead, Dave.
Sorry.
uh, it's not that Heir to the Empire isn't relatable still. It's that things changed because of a second series that was about Thrawn. Some of the things that happened during Heir to the Empire were sort of retconned.
Is that
Yeah,
ascendancy? I think.
I think I'll. Like I
The
said, I
Thrawn
think I'll give it a
Ascendancy.
watch.
The Thrawn
Yeah.
Ascendancy was the series. Yeah.
I still need to read that. I heard pretty good things.
So plus, the guy playing Thrawn's one of my all-time favorite modern day actors. So, all right.
And,
Final words
and
about this series,
uh,
or this show, or this particular episode. Don't all go at once.
I loved it. Lots of funny moments. Hoping for a little bit more action going forward, but I love the cerebral episode, so it doesn't really bother me if it's not action packed.
I thought it was great character development. That's one of the things that always set certain Star Trek, aside from others, especially when it came to Voyagers, is that I actually, like I said, I actually got to see Tuvok develop over the 7 years he was on the show. I got a chance to see Chakotay develop over 7 of 9 or in her 4 seasons. Paris, Paris from day one to year 7. Harry Kim from day 1 to year 7. The doctor, a damn hologram evolved. Even so, that's always been my favorite thing about Star Trek is watching the interaction and watching it grow from the situations that they're in and changing to where you see the end game of Voyager, which is literally called end game, and you see the evolution. And when you hear the Admiral Janeway, talking to Captain Janeway about, I've been spending so long trying to get you guys back home, I forgot how much you guys enjoyed being with each other, and that's the
Yeah.
kind of thing that you see from a crew, and I'm kind of happy to see it here as well.
The next episode is called Lost in Translation. Uh, the next Strange New Worlds episode, and the scene that they showed at the end of the Ready Room involved Una and Doctor and Engineer Pelia, Chief Engineer Pelia,
Oh
and
yeah,
she discovered some sabotage in the engines or something like that.
and she doesn't know how to follow orders either, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't think she's followed one yet since she's been in the smallest time she's been on the cruise.
Well, well, how do you expect a person who's several thousand years old to follow procedure?
Yeah, she's probably getting the beer right. She probably finds something like would have killed everybody and destroyed the universe. So
I'll
there
put
we
it to
go.
you this way. I'll put it to you this way. Her species, the Lanthanites, are supposed to be extremely long lived, and when I say extremely, I mean they've been around since the Stone Age, at least on Earth. And her character, at the very least, is well over 4,000 years old because she mentions Pythagoras.
Wow.
Yeah, how he invented math.
Yeah, it's going to
So,
be interesting to see where these characters that we know don't make it into the regular series that we don't see beyond that. It's going to be interesting to see where this series takes them. You know,
well,
so
you know my opinions on Leon. I think she's going to end up part of the temporal agency because
her.
I don't think she's meant to exist anyway. As for Palia, Palia could just dissolve right back into the population again. They've been her, like I said, her race has been living amongst us for thousands of years anyway.
Oh,
Uh,
you think Lana's going to be a part of the temporal core?
yeah,
All right.
I think she's gonna disappear into the temporal agency.
I wonder if we're going to see the Q in this series.
It's possible.
Or a version of it, like, was it
Or
Trelane?
AQ, yeah.
Well, the original series episode Squire of Gothos has been retconned to say that Trelane was a Q.
Oh, okay.
So
Is
And
that
there's
like the
only been one other
remaster?
series that there wasn't a Q. Actually, no, two. Actually, no, because there's none on. There hasn't been one on Discovery yet, and there wasn't one on Enterprise. Correct?
No, the only thing we got on Discovery was the time portal,
Yeah, the tomorrow's. Yeah, the portal.
the portal at the Edge of Forever guy.
Yeah.
Apparently, that portal is sentient and can appear as a humanoid version of itself.
All right. Well, that's all I got. All right, chat. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hit the liking, the subscribe button on both the Poindexter Lounge and head over to the Sci-Fi Center's page and hit the like and subscribe there. Helps our algorithms. If you'd like to support, I pinned I pinned it in the chat on my page and I put it in the chat. So streamlabs.com/the Sci-Fi Center/tip. Like I said, might mean the difference between us eating a mayonnaise sandwich and getting a Happy Meal. Who knows? All right, for Thade,
uh,
for Stella, for
we
Vince.
will we will see everybody on Saturday night for the overnight show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Glad to remind me. Tomorrow night is going to be our regular single cast show on the Sci-Fi Center's channel, youtube.com/Sci-Fi Center. However, next week, all of our shows, including the overnighter, will be simulcasted because I will all be coming from San Diego Comic Con. I will be there for all 4 days, and I will be broadcasting at least 2 shows of some sort on each of those days. Um, I'm going to be having some people stream with us. That'll be down there live that we'll be meeting. I'm trying to get the Nerd Queens for our overnighter because they'll be down there. I'll get to meet them in person. There's going to be a lot of people that I know online that I'll get to meet there. I've chosen this particular Comic Con because of the strike, mainly because of the writer's strike, and we could pretty much see the rest of this coming. And it turns Hall H into a less circus environment. But there will be a Star Trek panel at Hall H, which I think I have a chance to get into. And Star Trek, from what I've been told directly from Paramount, is going to have an amazing booth. And I will be broadcasting and taking lots of photos, doing lots of shorts from there. So keep eye on the page. Next week is going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, we'll be streaming on both Poindexter Lounge and the Sci-Fi Center's webpage, our YouTube page, and we'll be, like I said, I'll be cutting in and out. Thanks to Trauma for sponsoring my trip out there. And that's it. We will see you next time we see this show. It will be live from San Diego Comic Con. So, all right, guys, thank you for being here, and
Live long and prosper.
ditto.